Is there something unusual occurring again? You believed you had already experienced your awakening. You thought you were finished. You channeled, meditated, and let go of those who no longer aligned. You healed so much that it almost seemed like there was nothing left to unravel. But recently, something has been amiss. The old tools no longer operate as well as they did. The tranquility you've constructed is being upended by fresh inquiries that you can't ignore. And here's what most people don't talk about. There isn't only one waking. There's a second one. A deeper, more confrontational, and quiet one. And it generally occurs when you believe you have already gained clarity. The second spiritual awakening does not feel like the first. The first one was intensely emotional, upsetting, and chaotic. But this one feels more like a sluggish, disintegrating process in which former ambitions lose their significance. You're no longer motivated by the things you previously worked so hard for. It's as if your soul is separating from another layer of your human identity, and you don't understand why. If this happens to you, you're not lost. You're just waking up again. But this time, your soul is leading you deeper. During the initial spiritual awakening, there's typically a tremendous desire to cure everything. You start to rethink your habits, your childhood, and your relationships. You delve into inner work as if your life depended on it. But as the second waking occurs, something changes. You cease seeing yourself as something broken. You stop focusing on shadow work and start observing yourself with calm impartiality, not as a problem to be addressed, but as a real-time process. You may discover yourself shrinking from self-help information that previously seemed life-changing. Books, podcasts, and professors that once inspired you now seem monotonous, not because they are incorrect, but because you're being drawn into a new connection with your inner reality, one in which you're not improving, but simply being there. You know that certain elements of yourself do not need to be mended. They simply need to be heard. That's a powerful sign. Your ego is no longer in control of your spiritual path. One of the oddest indicators of the second spiritual awakening is a warped perception of time. Not in a spectacular or fanciful sense, but in subtle, unsettling moments that build up. You'll find yourself forgetting what day it is, not because you're preoccupied, but because it no longer feels relevant. You begin to realize how much of your life was centered on calendar deadlines, birthdays, weekends, and to-do lists. And none of this feels as real as it once did. Your soul is actually stepping out of the linear system. Time is a conceptual construct that enables us to traverse the physical world. But your spirit does not work on a Monday through Sunday schedule. During the second awakening, you begin synchronizing with the timing. You get unexpected intuitive nudges telling you when to relax, act, leave a place, or say something, even if it makes no logical sense. You could spend all night writing or pondering. Not because you want to, but because something within of you refuses to sleep until it is communicated. The next day, you sleep for 12 hours straight without feeling guilty. And this is the bit that many individuals keep to themselves. It might feel quite solitary when others are preoccupied with quarterly objectives or weekend activities. You're sitting in a timeless space, wondering if anything really matters. You realize that some individuals live for time, but you are now attempting to live for truth. This does not imply that you are above the world. It implies you will no longer be the rule, but rather the same invisible clock. Your energy is synchronized with something ancient, something non-linear, and this is how you know you're into the second stage. During your first spiritual awakening, you probably felt a sense of purpose. You wanted to discover your calling, express your abilities, and perhaps even assist others awaken. You sensed a profound inner mission emerge. However, at the second waking, something unexpected occurs. That desire to be someone begins to subside. You no longer feel compelled to pursue an identifying label or role. You begin to worry, what if I never become who I thought I needed to be? Instead of panicking, a peculiar sense of calm comes in, followed by perplexity. This does not imply that you become lethargic or uninspired. In truth, you may continue to create, labor, or contribute, but your link to the persona behind it weakens. You may be in the middle of a profession or working on a project that you were previously enthusiastic about, but it feels empty now. You're no longer motivated by recognition, productivity, or demonstrating your value. And that calm disinterest might be frightening at first, because we've been trained to believe that our worth stems on how useful or amazing we are. However, this transition is not nothingness. Rather, it is space. The second awakening teaches you how to live without defining oneself. You quit clinging to the person you believed you had to become. You cease to believe in yourself. Even though it may feel like you're drifting aimlessly, this is the first step towards spiritual separation. You are not growing numb. You're gaining freedom. The ego could resist. It could whisper, you're losing your sense of purpose. However, in truth, you're simply growing out of the belief that you ever required one in the first place. You aren't here to be someone. You're here to be there for your initial awakening. You undoubtedly experienced significant emotional swings. Every trauma reappeared. The triggers detonated. You may have sobbed abruptly, snapped at someone, or found yourself in deep emotional spirals. This made no logical sense. The emotional emptying was required. It was the release of suppressed energy that had been accumulated over decades or lives. However, with your second awakening, the storm subsides. You still feel, but your response is different. Calmer, wiser, almost spacious. You discover that items that have before activated you no longer peek into your nervous system in the same manner. You could even see yourself becoming agitated and then laughing lightly because you see through it. You understand where it's coming from. You can sense the aggravation, but it does not dominate you. That isn't numbness. That is emotional maturity achieved via spiritual connection. You've rewired something deep, yet something else makes you more sensitive. Suddenly, you're more aware of the subtle tones in people's voices, energy shifts in places and body language. Most people do not notice. You could enter into a room and sense everything: tension, dishonesty, and someone else's tiredness. You develop extreme sensitivity to noise, clutter, conflict, and emotional inauthenticity. This contradiction can be puzzling. You're less reactive and more impacted. The world no longer shakes you as much as it once did, but you feel it more deeply. One of the most visible indicators of a second spiritual awakening is how calm you have become, both visibly and internally. You no longer feel the need to fill every void, justify your decisions, or make yourself understood. You make more observations. You speak less. In every scenario, you pay close attention to your own energy as well as to that of others. It's not that you are chilly or distant. It means you no longer need to perform a connection. You stopped attempting to be relatable in order to feel accepted. People around you may notice the difference, and not necessarily in a positive manner. Some may argue that you've changed and are no longer as entertaining, involved, or interested. Some may put their uneasiness onto you, believing you're criticizing them or pushing away out of pride. But you aren't. You're simply listening to something deeper now, something most people have not been taught to hear. Your inner rhythm. And that rhythm no longer matches the external world. There's a softer attachment that develops within you, not because you have ceased caring, but because you have stopped pursuing. You don't explain your decisions to those who don't deserve your trust. You do not debate to be correct. You don't express your grief alone to be affirmed. And paradoxically, this new stillness begins to seem familiar, since it reveals that the loudest portions of yourself were never your true self. They were only your ancient survival patterns yearning to be seen. This stillness is not empty. It's called awareness. You finally realize that presence does not require permission, and those who genuinely connect with your spirit will not seek answers for your progress. They will feel it. They will meet you there in the silence. This one is subtle, yet really unpleasant. When it strikes, you wake up one day. Take a look around your space, work, relationships, and routine. Something feels odd, as if you were witnessing your life through a thin sheet of glass. Everything appears to be the same, yet you are no longer within it. Conversations, objectives, and everyday rhythm. It no longer feels like yours. It's as if your essence has softly sprung from the old structure, and now you're merely seeing a version of yourself go through the motions. This is neither dissociation or escapism. The second awakening marks a transition in identity. Your spirit has enlarged, but the world around you has yet to catch up. You still attend the same sessions. You're still talking to the same folks. You've already departed someplace within, though, and the distance between who you used to be and who you're becoming might feel like you're walking in a life that's getting too tiny to accommodate you. This is when individuals frequently question everything. Do I still want this job? Is this connection still in alignment? Why does my passion seem forced now? However, the second awakening does not necessarily need action. It necessitates presence. It teaches you how to sit in that in-between area without hurrying to repair it, and how to let your external life balance organically without destroying everything. Just to experience something fresh, feeling like an outsider in your own life. It doesn't imply you're lost. It indicates that you have outgrown the energy pattern in which you previously lived. Your spirit is remapping everything. And if you can sit in that awkward wait without worrying, you'll notice tiny alterations, new possibilities, new relationships, and fresh perspectives. Your external life will stop changing itself, but only if you allow your inner world to take the lead. The initial spiritual awakening is frequently accompanied by a desire to learn. You delve deeply into literature, philosophies, practices, ancient knowledge, and psychological frameworks. You want to comprehend everything. It's as if your spirit awakens and desires to swallow every ounce of truth it can discover, trying to make sense of the chaos and clarity you're experiencing all at once. However, at the second waking, something changes. The fixation with obtaining answers lessens and is replaced by a growing desire, a peaceful acceptance of not knowing. This may seem uncomfortable at first, especially if you were formerly someone who required continual clarity, control, or a clear way forward. Now, when doubt arises, you no longer panic. You do not attempt to solve it straight immediately. You simply sit with it. You begin to realize that most of life's profound realities do not come with explanations. They come with experiences. You stop questioning why this is happening. Instead, I began asking, what is this teaching me? You get more comfortable with not having a name for everything and with letting things happen in their own time. You no longer feel compelled to discover your destiny because you believe it has already found you. The second awakening does not provide a handbook. It invites you to live as if you were the handbook, page by page, day by day, mystery by mystery. That's when you realize something holy has changed. You will no longer structure your life around fear. You're no longer trying to repair yourself. You're no longer using exterior truths to determine your inner one. You've entered a different state of awareness, a deeper surrender. Ironically, it is at this submission that your next level of truth begins to silently emerge. You're not alone in this. And if you've made it this far, you were supposed to. The second awakening does not make you more unique. It helps you become more honest. And this alters everything. Let me know in the comments if this resonated with you, and if you're ready to move further on your path. Make sure you subscribe. The next video could be the sign you've been looking for.